Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's Riley, and I'm back with another video, and this time I'm doing something a little bit different from the typical hauls and looking at omnibus books and stuff like that I've done on my channel. I have kind of a little running list of videos that I'd like to do. They're a little bit different than the typical stuff that I publish here, and this was one of the first and one of the easier ones for me to do right now, and that's taking a look at a often unknown and kind of rare manga series, and that is BAOH by Hirohiko Araki. Now, before I start talking about BAOH itself, the series, I wanted to kind of talk about where I'm coming from with this, why I'm making this video. So, I'm a big fan of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, as are a lot of people right now. I've been in the series, into the series though, since about 2005, which I think when they started publishing JoJo in the US, but they started with part 3, Stardust Crusaders, which is the most popular part of the series. From the moment that first volume came out and I picked it up and read it, I was enamored with the just insane style that Araki has for his series. The way that he draws this grotesque violence, these crazy characters, and then the fun musical references that he strings throughout all of his different series. I was very, very happy when JoJo finally started gaining more popularity, especially here in the US, because it's always been a rather popular series in Japan and in France and in some other countries, in Italy, I believe, as well. But in the US, it never gained that popularity. It was always one that, like, kind of the old heads that were, into anime and manga back in the day, were familiar with it because there were JoJo games on the Super Nintendo and stuff like that. But as far as, the newer uh, readers and watchers of manga and anime, it wasn't as popular. So it was a real nice surprise for me whenever they started to adapt the series into anime, and how popular it became, because it then led for Viz Media to go back and start translating the earlier parts of the series, which I have right here. Parts 1 and 2 finally got English adaptations. And now we have these nice new hardcover editions, not only of parts 1 and 2, but also of part 3, and new hardcovers that have been releasing the fourth part, Diamond is Unbreakable, and we're about halfway done with those. So I've got all of that stuff. I've even picked up this Rohan at the Louvre spin-off book, this hardcover, and I've got the Blu-ray sets for JoJo, all that stuff, because I absolutely love the series and I love supporting it, and I love supporting just hopefully the continued success of the series. Hopefully we can see parts 5 and beyond translated into English and manga, and then we have part 5 of the anime is already concluded, but we haven't heard from part 6 yet, so I'm hoping that we'll see Stone Ocean soon, much like many other people here. But with all of that, and in this time that it's really great to be a JoJo fan, once consuming everything and once catching up with the manga and catching up on the anime and reading the spin-offs and stuff, I kind of wanted to go and find more. And I knew that Araki had done some series before he wrote JoJo. JoJo was one of the, it's, the series that he's been doing for the majority of his career, but he had been working on manga for several years beforehand. And most of them were shorter one-shot series like Buso Poker and stuff like that. Was it Mr. Outlaw or something like that? There's several of them. I don't remember all the titles, but there was one of them that was a little bit longer, and it was this series, BAOH. And the other thing that makes BAOH unique is that not only was it the first ongoing manga that he wrote before, this was a few years before JoJo, but it's also the first thing of his that was translated into English. The English translation of BAOH was released starting in 1989, a couple years after the series was out in Japan, or a few years actually, after the series was out in Japan, and it concluded in 1990. Viz Media released it as one of their Viz Select comics, these square-bound little trade paperback issues, and they released 8 of these issues. Like I said, this started in 1989. They concluded the release of these 8 square-bound issues in 1990. Now, the sales, though, on BAOH were not great. I don't know what the sales numbers were, but according to Wikipedia, not great. So it was never re-released as a trade paperback edition until, I think it was 2005 is when it was listed as having been released into trade format. And that format being the tankobons like this old Fist of the North Star. It was released across 2 volumes, and those two volumes are extremely hard to come by. But I found the single issues, these square-bound single issues, at a half-price books. I found, I think, 5 of them there, and I ordered the other 3 online. And I was really excited to have found them because, honestly, I completely forgot that it even existed. Little did I know it was actually even translated. And when I looked up how much these paperback versions were, I saw that they were going for just extremely high, insane prices, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to pay way too much for something like this when the single issues are significantly larger in trim size anyway. So I decided to stick with the single issues. And I got all 8 of those, and they've been sitting on my shelf for a while, and I've kind of ignored them for a bit, but I decided finally, you know what? I've got time. Let me go ahead and jump in and read this book. And I thought that I would present a video because I've never really heard anyone actually talk about having read BAOH before. And I wanted to talk about it and spread, my thoughts, and maybe get some other people who are fans of JoJo like myself to check out this series if they too are looking for something else along, the same line as JoJo. Now, what is BAOH? As you can see here, the cover art of the issues has that signature Araki flavor. It straight up looks like something out of JoJo. It reminds me a lot, and I think a lot of people will agree, of Star Platinum, the first stand that we're introduced to in Part 3, Stardust Crusaders. But whereas JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has largely been more of a fantasy series, BAOH is right off the bat a sci-fi action series, reminding me a lot of other titles that were published around the same time, like Battle Angel Alita, and I'd say maybe even Akira, because it has that real biopunk sci-fi flavor to it. The series starts out where we meet a young girl named Violet, and she is on a train where we find out that she has been experimented on, this is Violet right here, by some mysterious organization. And basically they're holding her hostage here and experimenting on her because she has some sort of mental abilities that make her a precognitive. So they're doing these experiments on her and holding her hostage, but she's trying to get out. Meanwhile, something happens on this train, and there's a young boy, this teenage boy that has been captured on here, who all of a sudden breaks out, and when he breaks out, Violet is also able to escape. And the series follows the two, as you can see here, as they're on the run from this mysterious organization. Now, just like most JoJo protagonists, our main character is a 17-year-old teenager who definitely seems like he could be much older, but we basically follow the two of them as they're trying to escape from these people who are chasing them down. Because as it turns out, the young boy has been experimented on, and they've inserted this, I guess, scientifically engineered parasite, which is called BAOH, into his body. And what BAOH does is it gives whatever organism that it's attached to these abilities. It creates like an armor around it. It gives, weaponized skin, weaponized limbs and stuff like that, have acid hands, all kinds of different things. And what it amounts in is basically the signature grotesque action that you expected from Araki by reading JoJo, but just in a lot smaller scale as far as a story goes, because this is limited to just these 8 issues or the 2 tankobon volumes. It's a really fast-paced series. I read all 8 issues. I love this cover, by the way. I think it's really great. I read all 8 issues probably within an hour. So it's really fast-paced, a lot quicker of a read even than a lot of the JoJo series. But I think a lot of that is because it's actually well-paced, well-written, and it's exciting. It's an exciting read. It doesn't slow down. You're constantly following these two as they're on the run, as they're on the lam, trying to escape from these people who just want to experiment on them. They're stating basically that BAOH could cause harm. This looks like it's straight out of JoJo, by the way. Like, there's no argument there. Like, that looks straight out of JoJo. This looks more like what we know of JoJo from Part 3 and beyond with the stands and stuff than the stuff from Parts 1 and 2 that directly came after BAOH. But anyway, they say that Bao basically could be dangerous for people if it gets to, you know, the public, to society and stuff, and that's what they're trying to do. So they send all of these different assassins who have different abilities. They send like a cyborg assassin after them, and then the series kind of culminates in the latter half. This is a really nice cover as well for number 4, with a telekinetic character. Basically Violet gets kidnapped, and we go to try and rescue her, and there's this telekinetic character who is extremely strong, who they send to fight against Bao. And the last couple issues are basically just a big old fight scene between the two characters, Bao and the other one's named Walken, who is named after Christopher Walken. So you can see here Bao has his arm blades out. That's his primary form of attack. So it's not very deep as far as storyline goes. The characters are fine. You don't get a lot of depth with them. It's basically just boy that gets experimented on, girl that gets experimented on, bad guys do the experiments, boy and girl run away, have to fight bad guy. But even throughout the limited amount of character development and stuff, it's still a fun series to read. And I think that any fan of JoJo really is going to enjoy reading this as kind of just a novelty, if I guess I could say that, as something that is fun to see Araki's process from earlier in his career as it evolves going forward into stuff like JoJo. And I would say his artwork at some points, because this is more of a sci-fi oriented story, his artwork in this series is sometimes even more exciting than some of the stuff we got from the beginning of JoJo, from Phantom Blood. And I would say, even if you were not a fan of Phantom Blood, because I know a lot of people think Phantom Blood is pretty slow, it's a little boring, we're not getting into the setup just yet of like the big universe of JoJo stuff, you might actually find this a lot more entertaining and engaging. But it does feel a lot like those series from the 80s, like I listed, like Battle Angel Alita. But I think Battle Angel Alita has a lot more depth with its characters, and you get to really get to know those characters a lot better. There's a few funny things, though, here. Number one, when I was browsing this, so we get a nice picture of Araki from a while ago, with his big flowing locks. And under his biography, it states, let's see what it says. It talks about a couple of his earlier series, Armed Poker, Buso Poker, and then Devil Boy BT, which was, I think, a 6-issue series where the character in BT was the inspiration for the way that Dio looks in JoJo. But then it says Bao premiered in 1984, which led to the top of this field. His latest work, The Strange Adventure of JoJo, is currently rated the #1 feature in Shonen Jump. So this is 1989 in the US, and they've translated JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as The Strange Adventure of JoJo. So I think that that's really funny. When I saw that, I actually laughed a little bit out loud. As the Western flavor in his storytelling will attest to, because a couple of his earlier stories, Buso Poker and then the Outlaw story, were actually Westerns. Araki is fond of American movies, traveling, and the rock and roll sounds of Prince. Who would have guessed? So I found that really funny that they actually have a completely different name for JoJo at that time. Now, it wasn't until years after this that we would see JoJo in the US, so I just found it interesting that this random piece of manga history happens to be available in English. And it's cool. It's really cool. I'm very satisfied with my purchase, and I'm glad that I read this. Is it the best manga ever? Is it going to change your life? No, Bao's not going to do that. Bao is not going to make you sit there and be like, oh my god, this is the best thing that I've ever read. This is better than JoJo. This is what JoJo should have been. No, that's not what Bao is going to do. It's going to give you something fun to kind of escape for an hour or so, if you decide to read it. I'm sure that, because everything is, I'm sure that it's available somewhere online, but if you're like me and you prefer having physical collections of stuff, I don't know that this is going for these single issues, the 8 single issues are going for too much. I know that when I tracked them down, the ones I needed to order online were only like a couple dollars each. So you can probably find the set for a pretty good deal on eBay. I know there's a lot of these, the Viz Select comics, these square-bound issues that I was talking about. A lot of sets of these are available on eBay for around $30 to $40. I know there was a set of the 12 issues of Cobra, for instance, that's going for about $30 to $40. So I'm sure you could find something like this on eBay if you absolutely need to have it physically. Because I really doubt that Viz is ever going to republish it. But it would be really cool. I would love to see Viz release BAOH in a new edition. I would love to see Viz release a new edition that, a new collection that has a lot of his earlier works, a lot of the stuff that's never been translated. But yeah, if you are a fan of JoJo, I would say check it out. If you're not a fan of JoJo and you like sci-fi biopunk type series, this might be interesting for you, but you're probably not going to find that same niche kind of appreciation for it as someone like all of us who are fans of JoJo. So this video went on a little bit longer than I was expecting it to, but I really appreciate y'all watching my kind of review, I guess, of BAOH. I hope that with this video you decide to pick it up for yourself or check it out online, wherever you might be able to find it. It is a fun little series. It does have some really cool artwork. I really appreciated it myself, and I think it's really cool just to look at something that very obviously inspired, I have to go back to this cover, but something that so obviously inspired the future of Araki's work. I think that it's really cool to go through and look at something that like that. I mean, come on. So again, thank you for watching. Keep checking out this channel for more videos similar or different to this. I don't know. I'm just kind of doing whatever I feel like at this point. But thank you for watching. Check out my other videos. I have a nice tour of my manga library, which you can see part of behind here. I have over 2,000 volumes of different series. So check that out. Tell me if there's anything that you'd like to see me talk about or review, and I'd be happy to make a video about it, given that I have the time. Otherwise, please like, comment, subscribe. Tell me if you like this kind of video, if you like me to see me do more reviews or talking about different rare series, if some rare or unknown books are worth tracking down, stuff like that. Otherwise, I guess I will see you all later. Again, thank you for watching.